Alright, so today we are going to review the distributive property, and the reason why is because a lot of you guys actually asked that you forgot how to do this, and this shows up on the SBAC a lot, so we are going to review it to make sure that next week you remember how to do this. So, when we talk about the distributive property, the first thing is that you have to think about multiplication. And what you're doing is you're multiplying either positives with positives, negatives with negatives, or positive and negative numbers together. So what I did was I gave you the rules to help you out so you remember the multiplication rules when you're actually doing the problems. Now, this says at least 70. You need at least 50 for this skill. I just want to refresh your memories here. So to get a full credit, you need a score of 50. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to click on the link and it's going to lead you to this. So the distributive property, like I said, always comes with multiplication. So if you have something like 3, and remember we see parentheses, parentheses always means multiplication. So if I have 3 parentheses 2 plus n, what that means is I'm multiplying 3 times 2 and 3 times n. So we're going to get 3 multiplied by 2. So I'm multiplying this with this, and I'm multiplying plus 3 times n. So literally all the distributive property is you're multiplying the number on the outside with each number inside of the parentheses. So my answer would be 6 plus 3n. So what you would put is 6 plus 3n. Now these ones are pretty simple. Even if the order is a little bit different, so for example here you have 6f and plus 1 times 7. Just because the 7 is on the other side doesn't change anything. Like, you could still multiply. Order doesn't really matter with multiplication. Or what you could do is change it so that the 7 just moves to the other side if that's something that you are more comfortable with. So regardless, all it means is you're multiplying the 7 with 6f and the 7 with 1. So I could even type this actually. But what you have would be 7 parentheses 6f plus 7 times 1, which gives you 42f, because 7 times 6 is 42 plus 7. So again, it's so important that all you remember mostly is that the multiplication is associated with the distributive property. All you're really doing is just multiplying, and that's it. Okay, can't move this. But the last thing I want to show you, so here is, it gets a little bit complicated once negative numbers get involved or subtraction gets involved. So for example, if I were to undo all of this, if I have subtraction, and here I could just switch the 3 to the other side. So if we have 3 times, and in this situation we have 2f minus 9, the only thing that changes is the difference between these two is instead of the minus or the plus, it's just a minus. So I would still multiply. You would get 3 times 2f. And the only difference is here there's a plus and here there's a minus. So you would put minus 3 times 9. So that's pretty simple, but it could get even more complicated with different, more negative numbers. So the last thing I'm going to show you is if it gives you more negative numbers, what would you do? So for example, if I had something like this, if you had negative 3 times 2m minus 5, for example. Okay, so what you would do is the same thing. Nothing, seriously nothing changes, but you would multiply negative 3 times 6m. So it's the same, but you just have to be really careful with your multiplication rules. So if I'm not sure, I could look at the Google form, and the Google form will tell me, okay, if I multiply a positive with a negative, my answer will be negative. So I know that this would be a negative 6m. Now what I have is minus, and here we have negative 3 times 5. Okay, so what happens is we have a minus. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. So again, multiplying a negative with a positive gives me a negative. But what happens is I have two negatives right next to each other, so that becomes a plus. So negative 6m plus 15. So what you'll notice is if I'm multiplying a negative with a negative, it will become a positive, and that's something that you see here. Two negative signs being multiplied together gives you a positive. So it's really important to remember that you have the rules here to use it, so you make sure that you get the answer correct. Okay, so a few things to remember is that the distributive property is multiplication. You're multiplying the number on the outside with the two numbers on the inside, and to be very careful with the integer rules when you are multiplying.